Good Monday morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Oh my gosh. Oh, you guys, we are entering our 8th year of doing Author Talk, which everyone listening, watching, listening to the replay, whatever you're doing, all know that this was Russell's idea. So it's been 8 years and it's so exciting to have it come. And happy 2023 to everybody. So you guys listening to Author Talk with me, Amy, Russell, Fern, and our lovely author guest today is Melinda Curtis. So you guys, okay, my weekend holiday, I put myself in timeout, okay? And I feel like I needed a timeout. So I did minimal communication. I wasn't checking emails or text messages. I was in timeout. Yes, Greg, happy 2023. So if you text me or you send me an email, I'm getting back into the rhythm today and back into
She's
it.
about as responsive, Melinda, as she always is, but we have to pretend like she never had a timeout.
Okay, so Russell is still on my timeout list. Okay, Russell's still on my timeout list for sure.
I'm on my wife's timeout list too. Still, it's like not been.
Russell, come on. Amy is one of the most responsive persons I know.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Anyways, Melinda, don't listen to Russell because it's not a true statement. I am very responsive. Yes, very good. I love it. Plug your ears for sure. But you guys, New Year's resolutions, do you do them? Do you not? I'll be honest with you. I did not create a New Year's resolution. Russell mentioned earlier when we were talking that maybe my New Year's resolution was putting myself in timeout. So maybe I'll put myself in timeout.
That's a healthy resolution, and you get it out of the way really quick. So
exactly, I did. But did you guys do any New Year's resolutions, ideas? Do you not do them? Tell me what your kind of plans for the new year is. Fern.
I sure did. I did some New Year's resolutions. I decided there were certain things, certain people in particular, who did not need to be in my life. And so I've just blocked everything, blocked everybody access to from these people. So I just blocked it. And Inklings Publishing is turning 10 years old this year. This year, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. So I did a lot of planning on what we're going to do to celebrate. Plus, I decided that, you know what? I need to finish my books because what if I die and my story isn't finished? So I decided.
Are you planning on dying? Like what?
We're all going to die. That's the thing.
You're still a young chicken, okay? You're still a young chicken.
Death is around us. Death can happen at any moment. You just don't know. So I decided that enough is enough of putting my writing last and never having time for it. And I decided, no, this year my writing is going to be more important than anything else. So I'm totally intending to release 2 books this year and to plow forward into the next couple of years, pushing out my series because otherwise people are going to be like, she died and we didn't even figure out what happened to Brenna and Emil. So, I feel like I can't do that to the few people who are my fans. Okay.
That's in like 40 years. Like, oh my goodness. We are not talking about death this beginning of the new year because as you guys all know, Barbara Walters passed, but so did Pope Benedict the 16th also passed. And someone passed away yesterday. What was it? Something Mouse.
It's one of your superheroes.
Hawkeye. No, he didn't pass. Okay, Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, did not pass away. He's just in critical condition from a snowplow incident.
Who is he?
What? He's Hawkeye. He's the guy, shoots little bow and arrows, hangs out with Black Widow and the Avengers,
Tony Stark,
everyone was gorgeous, okay?
Do the bow and arrows, do they explode and stuff?
Yeah, they explode, do all kinds of stuff, create zip lines. It's really cool. Cool stuff is what he does. Yes. Happy New Year, Richard. Greg, no deaths. Not talk about death on New Year's.
Greg, spot on, man. Spot on. No death talk today. Moving on.
What was it? It was like Madness Mouse or something band. The drummer died. I can't remember what that was. But
Melinda told you to quit talking about it, Amy.
I was still going on my thing. I hadn't finished my roundabout, okay? I had to complete it. You guys know I'm a completionist.
Is this how we start every episode? Is talking about who died recently? No.
Well, I mean...
No, it's just that you brought it out of us, Melinda.
No, to be fair, I'm a completionist. Like, it's the same with TV shows. Even if I think it's a shit show, I have to finish it. It's like that. I get anxiety if I don't complete things. So I think
completionism is a dysfunction.
It is a dysfunction, and I wear that crown proudly. I definitely do, for sure. But what about New Year's resolutions? Do you guys do them? Russell, do you do them? Melinda?
I'm with you.
Melinda, Melinda, do you do them?
I don't do New Year's resolutions. Part of the reason that I don't do New Year's resolutions is that I do quarterly planning.
Okay.
I kick my butt at the end of every month when I go back and look at where my progress is. And so I don't, resolutions are usually, it's just usually pie in the sky things like I want to lose 30 pounds or, I'm going to drink less or I'm going to do whatever. I give everyone permission to not do New Year's resolutions. The one thing that comes close to a New Year's resolution for me is I read something yesterday about you're not supposed to call your exercise regime a workout because that tells your brain it's hard. So I'm in training.
Okay.
I'm perpetually in training.
I like it. I like it. I never stick to my New Year's resolution, so I just stopped doing them.
Right.
Well, you better start working out. Amy, by the way, Melinda, this year is going to hike Kauai Island in the Hawaiians, that 12-mile dangerous hike that her mother's freaking out. So she better get into working out because she needs to get in shape. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, to be fair, she's freaking out about Crawler's Ledge, which is like this thick, and you go around a cliff, and it's like a straight plummet into the ocean. That's what she's freaking out about. But yes, I'm going to do that.
And it's Kauai, which is like the wettest island of the island. So you could slip and fall to your death, but hey, we're not talking about death today. You're probably going to have a fantastic time, and it's going to be something you think about on your deathbed.
Exactly.
On my bucket list. Yeah.
I love it. That was creative. That was creative. I like it. I'm also this coming weekend going to go hike this like 27-mile trail in Georgetown, but it's pretty flat. It's not like, rugged terrain or anything. That's to break me into backpacking because Melinda, I'm not an outdoors person or a backpacker, and
she will be at the end of this year.
So that's it's on my husband's wish list, and so I'm making his wish.
Oh, so you're being good. My husband's wish list is that he golf every day, and I go with him, and that is not going to happen. So you don't have to.
I know. Yeah.
You can meet him at the beginning and the end of the trail, right?
I know. Well, I found out there was a helicopter that would take you to where the end destination in Hawaii, and he took that really quick. I don't know why. That would save 11 miles. It'd be great. But yeah, we're not going to do that. That just doesn't happen. Russell, what about you and your New Year's resolution? Do you have any?
Well, I actually feel a lot about them the way Melinda does, and I love that she really. The cynic in her is just like bubbling up about this. I love that. I also love the fact that she says that she gives herself quarterly reviews because I think that that's something everyone should do, constantly press against the ceiling of their own achievements, trying to push further. So I actually admire that. But I do think that this year I need to say no more often. I think no is a good answer. I believe in no. It's like Fern talked about what she wanted to change this year. I actually put a quote on my author page today from Marcus Aurelius about most of the things that people do are not important and they can move them out of their lives and make more time for that which is important. I like that. And since I'm a Stoic, I listen and read Marcus Aurelius. So as I fade in and out, I have a fog coming in through behind me into the woods. So if I start getting foggy, I'll still be here.
As long as nobody murders you in there, that's perfect. Because like your Murder for Me book title and then fogginess, that's beautiful.
That's I know it would be great. Thematic. You could write. It could be one of your next books about. This guy that's on this podcast and he gets killed. I bet there's already one of those books.
There is probably.
Oh yeah.
While we're talking about podcasts, I want to thank the people listening. Melinda, most people don't watch us on Monday mornings. Most people listen to us during the week on our podcasts. We're like top 10 in America on Independent Bookcast, and we're very humble and we appreciate those that listen to us. Amy, where can they find us?
Yeah, so you can find us anywhere that you can find a podcast: Amazon Music, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Google, Good Pods, all of those you can find us on. And like Russell said, we're just humbled. We started this for fun. It was Russell's idea. We've evolved and changed it over the years. And we're just excited to know that other people enjoy it as much as we do, because we get up every morning on Monday mornings and have a ton of fun. So we're incredibly grateful for you guys. We're excited for what 2023 has in store for Author Talk. With all of that being said, one of the changes that I made going into 2023 is the membership Through the Eyes of Authors that I run. You guys all know Sandy Lawrence started it, and I took it over when she decided to transition and switch gears. And I have decided that it is now going to be a free membership. So if you were curious about it and you always wanted to kind of learn new trips, what's trending in terms of being an author, different marketing tips, strategies, self-publishing route, whatever you want to do, it is now a free membership. We're going to meet once a month on Monday evenings. We'll meet Wednesday morning every week at 9 a.m. completely free. So you can invite your friends, bring it all in. But this year I've decided is the year of authors and educating authors and giving them the best opportunity and chance that they have, even small press, indie authors, which is my realm, my happy spot. So this is my way of helping to contribute to that. I have a ton of resources and people that I've met along the way. And so it's just a new year, you guys. So Through the Eyes of Authors is now a free group that anyone can be a part of. So tonight is the night that we are meeting to kick off the new year. It's the one time this month that we're going to meet. We're talking about goal setting, what all we can do to help you, what are your goals to hit, and we're going to be checking in on those quarterly. So it turns out to be, so we can kind of help you be accountable and keep you on track. So if you're interested in it, send me a message. If you want to join, I will be posting the Zoom link for anyone and their mother to join if you would like to come and hang out with us this evening. But you guys, I hope all of you guys had a great holiday, new year, everything like that. So to kick off our new year, let's get Fern talking to Melinda about all of her books that she's written. Take it away, Fern.
Well, Melinda, I love your genre because it's romance. And I love romance. So let's talk about sweet romance, right? Because I know Russell was like, what is that? He was like, he didn't know what sweet romance is. So share with us a little bit, Melinda, about how do you define sweet romance?
Okay, first off, I haven't finished my first cup of coffee. I'm a little bit spicy this morning, and that's not what I write, spicy. However, this whole sweet, clean genre labeling is one of my bugaboos. So I'm just going to give it to you.
Good.
Right?
Good. Because it is for me too. But I was happy to see sweet instead of clean, because I have real issues with the word clean.
Oh boy, she would get on her soapbox if you'd have put clean.
Right. Clean is okay. I don't want to say that I'm long in the tooth. Probably if you're listening, you can't see how big my teeth are or whatever. Who knows? But I was around when Amazon started labeling my books clean. I'm like, what in the heck is clean? Right? Because I would write stuff that would have a mild curse word like damn or hell. And I would get some reviews back from people that were like, oh, flag, there are a few cuss words in there. I'm like, cuss words? Damn, maybe damn. To my grandmother, that would be a cuss word, right? So sweet for me is there is no bedroom. There could be a bedroom, but I write a lot of books for Harlequin where they don't want me to have any bedroom. So they're really more emotional and oftentimes lighthearted because I write comedy too. So the whole sweet thing is you can't have too much kissing. You can't talk about body parts, but they're not sweet. Like some of my books are tear jerkers, where people go through some really hard stuff. And some of them are sweet and they're, you know, light, fluffy rom-com that you would see on Hallmark. So there's a spectrum. But I do resent the label clean and sweet because I just don't think that says, you know, it's like, it's PG. It's just PG.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is the issue, right? I mean, you have the readership of the romance readership that doesn't really want to see what happens in the bedroom. They want all of the, you know,
The feels.
bringing of the tension, the feels, yes, getting to the romance, to falling in love part. But they don't want to see the bedroom. So I think that having a label that allows them to be able to distinguish between a romance book that has, you know, more description of the actual moment of, you know, making love, versus ones that are more like fade to black, we know what happened. You know, I think that's a good thing. You know, I don't mind having a label that helps certain readers know this is the kind of book you want to read, right? Versus, you know, if you're spicy or hot, you know, my stuff's spicy and hot, you know, not everybody wants to read it. But definitely I have a real issue with clean, right? Because there's nothing dirty about making love. There's nothing dirty about it. And I have a real problem with that label. So a sweet I can deal with, you know, but also, I mean, sweet doesn't mean, like you said, sweet doesn't mean that they're not cussing or that they're not going through some really difficult things. For sure. I mean, the plot line can be real intense. So I love that about your books, that they're real, they're more genuine.
By the same, but by the same token, sweet is not something that Amazon labels, right? There's no category on Amazon for sweet. And I think that's a missed opportunity on their part, but hey, who am I?
Well, you know, because they're still using this.
Well, what category do you put sweet in? Where do sweet romances go then?
It gets plopped into clean and wholesome.
Oh, so it's called clean?
It's called, it's literally called clean and wholesome romance is the category. In
I'll never make that. I'll never make that. You know, in the first book that I wrote, Melinda, I use sex as a symbol of the decaying of the mental ability of one of the characters. In the next book, there is no sex in the next book because it's about, part of the book is about a romance about an older couple that they never seem to be able to close to get there, right? They never seem to get there. It's kind of one of the comedies in it. And so I don't think I think you can't use, I can't ban myself from sex. Sex is a part of the literary world to write and to include.
I read sexy romance. I have written sexy romance. I mean, it's just that my books that didn't have sex in them sold better. So that's what I focused on. You know, I made a business decision. So I think it's all, you know, does it serve the story? Does it make you happy? Because when you're writing a book, if you're not, you know, happy in writing the book because it's hard, then don't put sex in your book if you don't like to write it, right? I mean, make some conscious choices.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know if I were to write, I'm not a writer, Melinda. I just help promote writers. Okay. Now that you understand, I do book marketing, but I always say this and it's so true. But if I were to write, you know, like if I were to dabble in writing like a romance, and even if it was like a sweet romance or something, in my head, I would have all of these scenes going. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write, like, I don't know. I would be all bashful and stuff myself. That's just my personality, right? And so if I'm sitting here typing it, especially if it was like super steamy and explicit or whatever, I don't know if for me, that's how I know that the genre is not for me. I can read it, but writing it, I would just, I don't know. I feel like my cheeks would get all red and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm writing this, right? So it's like, oh, I can't do it, you know? So it's just, I don't know. Like, it's just a kudos to romance writers that can sit and do that. And it comes across so beautifully, right? Even sweet, not clean, not sweet, whatever. You want to write steamy, spicy, as you mentioned it. But for me, it's just like, whew, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing it. You know, so it's like, I don't know, but I like to read them. So kudos for being able to do that and make that business decision as, hey, these are selling better. I'm going to play in this arena because that's where I'm making money, right? So kudos to you.
Because also it's hard to write like steamy erotica stuff, you know, and make it sound good and make it sound beautiful and not just vulgar, right? I mean, it's not easy to write a more explicit scene. You know, you really, and like you said, it really has to flow into the story. One of the things I've been noticing about as I'm writing book 2 is very much that you know, sometimes it's just not pertinent. It's just not pertinent. You don't need to stick it in there, right? If it's not pertinent. So, well, I mean, you know,
no pun intended.
No
Isn't
pun
that what
intended.
Richard or somebody posted on the
That's
Facebook
right.
page?
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't stick it in there if it's not pertinent. But anyway,
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
know.
awesome.
I mean, I have considered, you know, when I was writing Steamier, I've considered writing, you know, submitting to different publishing lines. And, you know, you look at guidelines and it's like, well, we want 6 sex scenes in 50,000 words. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Where's the romance? They're going to constantly be doing it somewhere, somehow, some way. And you have to come up with 6 new ways every book you write. And so how is that going to be? Wow. And what?
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense because really the whole point of it, from a reader's perspective, honestly, the whole point of it is the relational aspects of it, of how the girl and boy meet, the obstacles they overcome, how they manage to connect to each other, how they manage to make that decision to say, okay, I choose to love you, you choose to love me, you know, we're going to move forward in life together, and the things that try to come, you know, in between them and stuff. That's really what women
in between
want
them.
to read.
Again, innuendo. Love it. Yeah, and it's whatever. You know what? Some readers love that, and some, you know, more sex forward, if you will. And some writers love to write that, and I say, yay. You know, whatever you like to write, whatever you like to read, you know, go get it. But for me, I was like, wow, 6 in 50,000 words. I couldn't imagine myself doing it.
That's a lot of sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those people are not going to be able to walk. Anyway.
Right. They're going to be drained the whole way.
They won't be able to do anything. So what got you? Okay. We know how you kind of narrowed in on the books that were right for you, you know, in terms of what was selling the best. What got you into writing? What made you go, oh, this is definitely, I want to be a writer? Because that's always a great thing to hear, is like, what was the first thing that said, I want to write, I want to be a writer?
I was always a voracious reader, and my mom was too. It was really encouraged in our household. We did lots of library trips, lots of bookstore trips growing up. And so I just, you know, carried that through to my adult life. And my great aunt passed away, and her caregivers knew that my family were big readers. And she was a Harlequin subscriber. And so I got these bags and bags and bags of Harlequin books of all different lines. Like Nora Roberts was in there. This was like, you know, she never threw or passed on a book. She kept all her books. And so I kind of went through and started reading some and, you know, thinking, oh, I like this one or don't like this one. And then I went through like a whole pile where I didn't like any of them. I mean, I know as readers, if you're a reader, you go through a pile, you know, and you get really frustrated. Like, I could do better than that. And then I picked up one and I opened it up, and the woman, this was in the way back. In the front was a P.O. box that you could write to this author, like a dear reader letter, you know, the book dedication, whatever, and, you know, get in touch with me. This was before the internet and Facebook. And she was like 45 minutes away from me. And so I wrote to her and I was like, well, how does someone start to write a book? And she literally, her name was Susan Crosby. She literally invited me to her writing group and said, you know, come and just check us out. And that was it. That was how I started. And they were members of Romance Writers of America, the Sacramento chapter in California. And they introduced me like to visiting editors and agents who came to speak. I went to the national conference, and started to kind of network and figure it all out. So that was kind of how I started. I literally got sucked in.
That is awesome. And it's awesome because it talks about how the writing community is. We're very inclusive, and writers are people who invite you to come write with us because we want you in our madness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been writing for a while, and I would say the thing that keeps me writing is I really love people. Maybe I don't love like being with people all the time, it's kind of exhausting. But in a book, I can fix people, whereas you can give advice to a friend, not that I'm that person, but I will sit back and say, wow, maybe if you were in this situation or you thought about that a little bit more, maybe you would grow and change and your life would be better, right? I can do that in a book. It's kind of like a puzzle. I really enjoy that part of it. But if you're getting into it maybe for the money, we all know writing is not where the money is. It's like very few. It's like, winning the car when you go play at the casino.
Right.
Very few.
You really have to have a deeper motivation for writing. And I love what you're talking about is, exploring the human condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how can humans improve themselves? Because that's kind of what we're supposed to be doing, right? Is to become the best version of us that we can, but some people don't. But it's fun to play with characters.
Yeah.
And, and
I
see
still
that.
love those people. If they're in my life and they're imperfect, I still love them and care for them. But it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Maybe if you would have turned right instead of left, it would have resulted in a better end game. Yeah.
You wouldn't still be going in circles.
Yeah.
Are we talking about writing still, or
yes,
we
are.
About yes. I think we're talking about something else.
It's clear that writing is therapeutic. So Melinda got sucked in, and then she, when she had mentioned now, she gives advice, and all of that. But in her books with her characters, she can kind of manipulate the story and the outcomes and kind of fix problems and things like that maybe in the real world you can't. So it's in a sense therapeutic, and for us, that the world's too peoply sometimes, that's the best solution, because I'm an advocate for the world being too peoply. I go to Target and Starbucks and I've had enough of people for the whole day. Okay, so I'm an advocate for peoply. So I mean that's the connection I was making, is that writing's therapeutic, and sometimes if there's a situation going on or whatever and you can't fix it and you can't manipulate that person, that's such a bad word, but manipulate that person to see and shake them and do all of these things in your stories, you can. So it's an outlet, on something that's frustrating you that you can't control, and you're just like, I want to shake you, but it's not working. Well, in your book, you can shake them and been like, listen here, we're going to go this way. Okay. That's what we're doing. We're going this way, so I think that's the beauty of it. And I think that's why, the world would be such a boring place if we didn't have writers that help us escape and take all those things. But every story, doesn't matter if it's a romance or any other kind of fiction, fantasy, nonfiction, it resonates with someone, right? And it takes them away, because maybe a situation that's happening in your book, there's an affair or a cheating scandal or whatever, someone that's reading that can relate to it, right? And if it's therapeutic for you writing it or whatever, you've touched somebody. That's why the world would be so boring without you writers, and I am not as creative with words as you are. Okay, every single one of you guys have gotten my emails. You know this. Okay, I'm not. So kudos.
One of the questions that I have is in terms of this issue of changing people, because we know that people need to change for themselves because they want to improve. And we know that women can get into a cycle of falling in love with potential versus what's actually there.
That's right.
And not speaking from personal experience at all. But, how do you manage that in your books, in terms of, yes, love has the power when you really love each other. It has the power to help build each other up and improve. But at the same time, you don't want to make it sort of, a manual for how to change your man. So how do you manage those relationships to show that there's a certain, there's not manipulation. There is just a natural flow of love for improving each other.
Okay, I'm going to talk the craft of writing for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that you have somebody who is, what's popular? A grumpy hero, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
He's grumpy
Or an alpha male.
Or an alpha male who is, set in his ways, right? So you have in your plot, the external plot, right? He wants to conquer, the alien invaders, right? And so as you're thinking about the basic ideas for conquering the alien invaders, in the middle of your book, you're going to have probably about 2 or 3 events where he's going to fail, right? And he's going to be learning something about the alien invaders, but also learning something about himself along the way. So usually what I try to do when I'm plotting is say, okay, if I have a grumpy hero, first off, what made him grumpy in the first place? Mm-hmm. And what is the worst plot I can put him in? Currently, I'm writing a grumpy hero who wants to buy this very expensive horse from this horse trainer, and they were rivals in high school. And so it's like the worst person for him to buy the horse from. He has no money. It's the worst situation, right? And she is not in any way like pretty or dainty or anything that he thinks is beautiful, right? So I put all these things in place so that as he goes on this journey to try to buy this horse, that he has to swallow his pride and he has to do these things. So you set things in motion. Who wrote The Birds? It was Alfred Hitchcock, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was like, really, the external plot is the MacGuffin of what happens while you're putting these people through these journeys. It's not like you want to take them to therapy, but you want to put them in situations where they'll react and they'll react in the wrong way and fail. Mm-hmm. And then they will hopefully learn along the way that, wow, if I have this attitude or I have this behavior, it's not going to get me where I want to be.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And that's very true, because external struggles that bring about internal growth is really what we do as authors, right? We put that into our plot line. I noticed, Russell, do you have something to say because you're unmuted?
I just want to, but remember your question. I just wanted to say, Melinda, that was a beautiful answer. We rarely get answers that concise and beautiful. Thank you so much. That was excellent.
It was great. So I noticed that you also write women's fiction besides the sweet romance. And I think some people might want to know, like, okay, what is the difference between a romance versus a woman's fiction? How do you see the difference between those?
Oh my goodness. Probably about 5 years ago, I finally figured it out because I was like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. So women's fiction tends to be more emotional. So I actually had a series that I was writing that was really emotion forward and going through emotion and spending less time with the couple kind of working things out. It's more about character growth for the woman. And then, you'll have a romance thread running through it, but it won't be as prominent as a romance where it's romance forward.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great answer, because you're right. The women's fiction is more about the issues of a woman, what she struggles internally, versus the relational aspects of it. What are some of the things that you like to write in terms of those struggles in your books? What are some of the themes that call to you?
I like past mistakes. So I like to think that I start with character. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if? So wouldn't it be interesting if a woman and her best friend were driving back from a weekend in Vegas and her mind drifted and they were in a car accident, right? It's not really her fault, but she was driving in this car accident. So wouldn't it be interesting? How would that affect her relationship with her best friend, because that is the women's fiction part, and how would it affect a relationship with her childhood crush, who is her best friend's brother, right? So those kind of, I try to think of, you know, a lot of people don't intentionally make mistakes in their past, but life is not black and white, and there are gray areas and things happen and you don't really mean them to happen, but how do you come back from that? I really love characters like that.
The redemption element. And especially because different people will perceive the same situation differently. So, you know, for you, one character might not think that that was necessarily a mistake, but the other character might see it in a different way or perceive it. Because maybe you don't have, like, I know in a lot of human discussions, you have these discussions of like, well, I didn't intend to hurt you, right? But you did.
Right.
Right. So how do you, you know, toggle between, okay, what you intended versus what actually happened because the other person was in a different space or whatever. So I love those kinds of issues in your novel. So you were saying you were working on a new novel, right? So how are your novels in terms of, like, you know, a lot of people work in series, right? But it's a little different for romance writers because usually romance writers have more standalones. That's the traditional romance novels are standalones, and if it's a series, it's, you know, the next book is sort of some minor characters that showed up in the previous one, right? So how about your novels? Like, what are some of the things that connect them, and how do you sort of decide where you're going next?
Well, I have several series that I'm writing at the same time. So I write a lot of small towns, so it's a small community, so you can draw on people there. And I also write about a family, so I draw from people there. And then that's a lot of that is just it. I don't like to write standalones, and that's a business decision on my part because the standalones don't sell as well. It's just harder. I know a lot of people like Soraya Wilson, I believe, does a lot of standalones, and her rom-coms are really great, you know, but she told me that she spends a lot of time plotting out her you know, situations that she's starting out with, you know, and I am kind of on a treadmill. I have a lot of books that I write, a lot of words that I write a year. So I want to draw from, okay, I'm going to write about this person now. I'm going to write about that person.
Yeah, and that's a really great way to do it because you're also drawing from the world, right? You've already established the world of this small town, and here's who lives in it. So people are familiar with it and they're excited to see more about these. And I'm sure your fans have opinions as to, you know, whose life they'd like to see next. Do you ever get those kinds of, like, fan emails, like, you know, what they would like to see next, and you know, how do you respond to some of these beautiful fans that have thoughts on that?
Just wait. I just finished in the last year. I finished a 12-book series for Harlequin, which was hard. It was hard. It was 12 siblings and cousins inherited a small town in remote Idaho, and they didn't really know why they inherited the town or whatever. But so there was a lot of setup. But one thing I learned was when you're writing a big series like that, you know, big, but in a small town, that you want to have 4 to 5 unique characters that's, you know, our supporting cast who are never going to fall in love. Usually I have old people, or in the case of this series, I had like an 11-year-old girl who was very precocious and going through things, as 11-year-old girls do as they transition to their teen years. And for comedic relief, you know, I like to have those people in there for that. So whatever genre you're writing in, you know, maybe create those for your genre readers, you know, that they can rely on whatever other things you're writing. And then I try not to tell too much about every character, especially when I'm writing for a publishing house. So I do indie publishing too, but for a publishing house, I found usually somewhere in the middle of a long running series, they will say, you know what, we really want you to have this series be more cowboy forward because cowboys are selling, or we really want you to make this more lighthearted now, So if all of a sudden they want you to go lighthearted and you've committed that this one character has some heavy issues to go through, it's like, whoa, now what am I going to do? now I have
How
to
do you
rethink
toggle?
everything. Yeah. So
And
you really do have to be nimble.
that's such a great point in terms of, a publisher author relationship. When you are an indie author and you're publishing for yourself, you're really working your own books for yourself, and you might have a developmental editor that gives you some feedback or whatever. But when you have a publisher, oftentimes that publisher wants certain things because they're reading the market trends, right? And they want to hit those trends. And it can be a very hard thing to like you say, kind of. I found myself being very rebellious. It's very hard for me to to write what I don't want to write,
But I don't think you should write what you don't want to write. I think it's harder, I mean, it is just harder. I had a series that was short-lived with a traditional publisher, and they said, we love your humor, we love your emotion, but we would like to transition you to writing paranormal romance. And I said, that's not my brand. That's not in my wheelhouse. Sorry, no, I'm not going to do it. Right. So you really have to think about what gives you joy, because it's a hard road.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why I, in the end, didn't go the journalism route because, being told this is the story you're going to cover kind of, I couldn't find myself writing well in that direction. But, talk about the genre elements. That's why I always throw in a dragon because, that's my genre.
That's awesome. I love dragons. Mermaids, dragons.
So I have a question, Melinda. So from the information that your publicist sent me, one of your books was made into a TV movie. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what was that process like for you? Did they approach you and like, hey, we would love to make this into, a movie for TV, or, what was that like? Because I feel like that's every author's dream, right? To have their book made into production, a big movie or a movie that goes on TV, a TV series, whatever. So what was that like for you?
Well, I had actually nothing to do with it. They went to Harlequin and they said, hey, we're looking for these types of settings, backgrounds, whatever, topics to turn into a movie. And they said, one of the things was we want a winery romance. And I happen to have written winery romance because in a past life, I used to work for a winery. So, they said winery romances sell well overseas. So they wanted to make a TV movie about that. So I had nothing to do with it. I saw like a first draft of a script, and then they invited me out for a couple days to watch filming. And so that is one part of the story. The other part of the story is I've stayed in touch with the producers of that film, and every year I pitch them books that I write. I also have a producer from LA that's a Hallmark movie producer, kind of contacted me because they were thinking about doing some cowboy romances to pitch to Hallmark. They were looking to do something different based on Yellowstone being popular, right? So there's a crossover where you take Yellowstone, which is not Hallmark at all, and trying to ride that trend into Hallmark. But then they very quickly found out that I guess Westerns don't sell well in Europe. So part of the whole TV movie process is that it has to be marketable other than just the US and Canada, right? It has to be in the UK. It has to have bigger potential. So what I have done is I keep those two producers every year around September, October, November. I send them my new holiday books. That's why you see I write a lot of holiday books and a lot of novellas, because for a 90-minute TV movie, they're not looking for, a big 300, 500-page book that they would have to take the elements out of. And they want it to be very hooky and very like what's on trend now. And I just find that I can write, 20 to 30,000 words and indie publish it just so I can pitch it to the TV movie realm.
Oh, interesting. See, I love that. I don't know a whole lot about getting, books made into films or getting a film agent and pitching it and doing all of that. So whenever I encounter an author that's done that, I'm like, tell me all your secrets. Like, tell me what it was like. Like, I'm going to live vicariously through you, and I want to know. Because when I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to go look up this movie and watch it. So it's on my list to watch today. Your book that was made into one. But you are such a fascinating writer, and you make such amazing business decisions. You really understand that being an author is a business. It's not just a hobby, it's a business. And I think that's a mindset shift a lot of authors need to make. So hopefully in 2023, we have a lot more that realize it's a business and you are your own entrepreneur. So you got to get out there and hustle. But I know for me, Melinda, this has been an amazing conversation. So insightful. You are definitely one of our people. So thank you so much for coming on and hanging out, partying with us. And I would love to talk more about, your past life when you worked at a winery. I love wine. I think that'd be such a fabulous conversation. But I'm going to kick it to Fern and Russell for last minute comments, questions, statements, anything like that before we close out this show. Russell, you go first.
So I was going to say the winery thing too.
Oh,
we're
cool.
so the same. Would you please, before you go, tell us where listeners can find your books and about you?
Sure. Just search out Melinda Curtis. I have a website, melindacurtis.com. I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google, Kobo, all the places, Instagram. I try to do TikTok. I really suck at it, as most of us do, right? Unless you're an influencer. And I would say, just a quick tidbit, the funnest thing that ever happened to me while I was working at a winery is wine tastings almost always happen at 9 or 10 in the morning. And so you have a nice buzz on, because I'm not good at spitting. So if we were tasting 10 wines, I would have, a sip or two of 10 wines before 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Okay. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. I'm for it.
Guys, I think, are predisposed to good spitting because they spit, as kids more so than girls did. But yeah.
Fern, what about you? Closing comments, statements, questions before we close out this morning?
Oh, just a thank you for Melinda for being our very first author interview of 2023. It was a fantastic discussion. I loved it. And thank you for also hating the word clean. I love it when I find people who also hate the word clean.
That's right. That's right.
I love it. Well, Melinda, thank you so much, everybody. We hope that you've had a fantastic start to 2023. This is going to be a great year in my mind for everybody coming. But until then, Melinda, we're going to have you back on to dive more into these conversations, because it was wonderful. But thank you for being our first guest of 2023. We'll catch you guys next Monday. Bye, everybody.